hired to guard a ranch. But every night, something guards him. The footprints were fresh. The well whispered his name, and the missing man's photo had changed. What happens when your job is to stay awake, but the darkness wants you to sleep forever? Welcome to the final patrol. Titled The Final Watch, whispers from the genre. True style suspense horror. Setting rural USA cattle ranch, 1987. Main character, Tom Stanley, night watchman. Episode 1, The Land of Silence. In the fall of 1987, I took a job as a night watchman at a remote cattle ranch, somewhere deep in rural America. That kind of place where the stars are brighter, roads are dirt, and the nearest town is an hour away. My name's Tom Stanley. Nothing special about me, just a guy needing a paycheck and a place to disappear. The ranch was vast, acres of barbed wire fences, old sheds, and thick patches of brush. The quiet was heavier than anything I'd ever known. The wind had a low, whispering tone, almost like it was trying to speak. On my first night, with a flashlight in one hand and my revolver on my hip, I took my first walk into the dark. That's when I felt it, like something out there was already watching me. Episode 2, The Missing Worker. On the far side of the ranch stood an old wooden cabin, empty, weather-worn and half sunken into the dirt. It used to belong to a man named Martin Sloan, a ranch hand who vanished weeks ago. One day, he was just gone. No notice, no bags. Just his boots outside the door, one upright, the other flipped over. As I passed the cabin that first night, I swore I heard the door creak open. I turned and flashed my light, but there was no one. Inside the cabin, a dusty mattress, broken table, and hanging on the wall, a black and white photo of Martin. But something was wrong. His face in the photo was blurred, and his eyes were blackened out. Episode 3, The Sounds in the Brush. Around 2 a.m., I was patrolling the eastern fence line when I heard a loud thud, like someone had slammed their hands against the wooden post. I whipped around, flashlight raised, but saw nothing, just thick bush rustling slightly in the cold wind. Then I looked down, footprints, bare feet, deep in the mud, but it hadn't rained in days. The prints led toward the cabin. Episode 4, Whisper on the Radio. Back inside the security shack, I reached for my radio, but it had already switched on by itself. A static hiss, and then a voice. Low, dry. He's back. I froze. Who? I asked, hand shaking. The voice replied, don't turn around. I turned anyway. Episode 5, Behind the Door. The shack door was open. Wine howled. Nothing outside. I stepped into the night, heart pounding, only to hear the door slam shut behind me. When I turned back, something was scratched into the wood of the door, rough and raw. Martin comes back at night. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just guarding a ranch. I was guarding a secret no one had warned me about. Episode 6, White Eyes. Before dawn, I returned to Martin's cabin. His photo was gone, replaced by a pale, dusty square on the wall where the frame once hung. I turned to leave when I heard slow footsteps. A man stood behind me, back turned, dressed in black. Martin, I called. He turned slowly. His eyes were pure white, no pupils, no soul, just a pale fog. And then he vanished. Episode 7, Beyond the Fence. I rushed toward the eastern fence. Behind the brush, a shadow peeked through, ducking in and out. I flashed my torch, nothing. But the wooden post had deep claw marks, fresh. On the ground, a piece of leather, part of Martin's old jacket. Suddenly, the radio crackled. This time, he's not alone. Episode 8, The Old Office. I forced open the abandoned ranch office. Dust, cobwebs, broken cabinets. But one drawer was open, not dusty. Inside was an old logbook. On the last page, in fresh ink, the one who watches at night will never sleep again. Suddenly, the ceiling fan spun on. Papers flew. The door slammed shut. I was locked in. Episode 9, The Living Tree. Outside, I saw the dead tree behind the cabin, now alive, full of green leaves. But the leaves looked like faces. I stepped closer. A handprint was burned into the trunk. A whisper reached my ear. He sees you. Through the tree's eyes. The roots twisted around my boots. I ran. Episode 10, The Well. At the ranch's backfield, there was an old sealed well. I lifted the lid. The stench of scorched bones hit me. I dropped my flashlight inside. For a second, it lit up a face. white eyes, black mouth, and a raspy voice. Tom, will you do what we did? My blood froze. Episode 11, Before Sleep. Late that night, I tried to close my eyes, but no sleep came. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed I was standing in the center of a burning ranch. Everyone, Martin, the old workers, stared at me. Martin whispered, "We called you that night. Why didn't you come?" I woke up screaming, but someone was in the room. Episode 12, The Silent Herd. All the animals were silent that night, dead silent. In the barn, the cattle were huddled in one corner, trembling. One bull looked at me, its eyes pitch black. I reached for my flashlight, and then I felt a hand rest on my shoulder. I turned around. Nothing. Episode 13, Trail of Blood. Heading east, I saw thin red lines on the ground. No rain, no water, but the trail was wet, leading straight to the cabin. On the door, scratched in deep, "Your last patrol, Tom." My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. Episode 14, The Burned Steps. Inside the cabin, the floor had burned footprints, glowing yet cold. The photo had returned, but it wasn't Martin in the frame anymore. It was me, underneath, handwritten in blood. "You are one of us now." Behind me, Martin's voice. "We chose you, in your sleep." Episode 15, The Final Patrol. Years have passed. I left the ranch long ago, but I never truly escaped. My eyes, sometimes people say they look strange, pale, hollow. That place was shut down, but every night, at the last hour, someone still walks the ranch. Martin, me, or maybe you.